Okay, well, welcome along to number 3. Thanks a lot for joining me again here at the Weight Loss Guy and all the advice that I can give to you. So I think I laid out in the previous video the fact that really the calorie is not suitable for the way in which we live our lives and the way in which we have a relationship with our food. So I really need to defend how I think we can move on from that and how I think we can do so much better. Essentially, as you all know, we are a large body mass of chemicals. We are made up of any number of chemicals. And essentially, we can really look down and see that we are made up of essentially 4 major chemicals. There are plenty of others, but essentially we are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Plenty of others, but that's really where we need to look at. And most importantly for us, we need to remember that our body fat is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Simple as that. That's all it is. Now, body fat is a very, very cool thing. It is an energy source. It is our energy reserve. And I think we need to bear that in mind. We do need body fat. However, for many of us, our body fat becomes too much of our bodies. It becomes too large a percentage. And that's what we really need to look to reduce. We should not focus on losing weight. It's the wrong thing to focus on. We should focus on reducing our body fat. So let's just talk about that. If our body fat is made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, well, then that's what we need to look towards. And essentially, keeping this as simple as possible, every food that we consume is also made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And therefore, we know that we can then use that food as an energy source if we need to run around, to think, to walk, to breathe, to live. Or if we have plenty of energy, then we can store that, any food, as carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, we can store that as body fat. So body fat is a very clever energy reserve that we can use anytime later on. So any food we consume will be stored as body fat if we don't use it as an energy source. However, there is one major food group that cannot be stored as body fat, that will not put body fat on us or will not put weight on us. And that is those food groups made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And nitrogen here is the binding element. Essentially, we can't use a nitrogen-based food as an energy store or as an energy source. It costs our body too much energy to separate the nitrogen from the carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in order to make it worth our while to use. So we need to look at our food groups in a very different way. So where the calorie tells us that 1 gram of protein will liberate 6 calories of energy, that may well be true when you burn that protein in a bomb calorimeter. However, we do not burn food. We do not incinerate it. We break our food down chemically. So that same protein, which is made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, cannot be stored as body fat and does not and will not add weight to us. And that is where the calorie ostensibly lets us down. So yes, foods that are carbohydrates or that are simple sugars or complex sugars, any end of the spectrum for the carbohydrate family, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, they will be used as energy. And they can be stored as body fat. So we need to be focused on those. However, we need to get away from the notion that the calorie is the catch-all solution for our relationship with our food. So if we want to consume a food that cannot put weight on us, or certainly will not add to our body fat levels, then we should look to the protein family. So those are our meats, fish, chicken, any kind of red meat, white meat, dairy products. No problem at all. They will not add to our body fat levels. We need to be very aware of the carbohydrate families, so any of your potato, rice, pasta, bread and cereals, and of course all of your sugars, all of the cookies and the chocolate bars and the fizzy drinks. Those essentially are those foods that we need to be very aware of that will add to our body fat levels. So we need to keep it incredibly simple. Look to your foods that cannot add to your body fat levels, the protein families. They will help our muscles, they will help build our bodies, our tissues and our skin and our bones, but will not add in a negative way to our body fat levels. Of course, added to this are all of our vegetables and salad items, and of course, water. So there's nothing wrong with any of those. And don't forget, we are 56% water, so really we should be looking to consume, as a food group, 60% of our food as a water or water-based food. So if we can look from that stance, then we can start to get a better understanding of foods that we might look to avoid that can add to our body fat levels that are high in carbon, hydrogen and oxygen, namely the simple sugars, the complex sugars and the carbohydrates, and those food groups that will not add to our body fat levels, the protein groups, meat groups, dairy products. And again, I'll expand on this in another talk later on. Thanks very much for joining me, and I hope to see you again.